Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us for tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. Tonight, we'll be looking at a topic, HR as a value chain, HR as an enterprise value engine. All right, and we'll be looking at some core concepts around value creation, value realization, value enablement, value protection, and ultimately, people impact. My name is Oluyemi Ade Osho, and one of the reasons why I'm doing this particular session is to help immerse and immerse HR practitioners and professionals into the things that truly matter to the business, so that as an HR practitioner, either as an in-house HR or external consultant, you can connect to the value chain of the organization, of the business, of the group. Different scenarios around value. How do we create value? How do you realize value? How do we enable value? How do we protect value? Because you can create it and also lose it. How do we protect it? And then how do we ultimately ensure that value leads to people impact? And by people impact, don't forget that all the stakeholders are people. Shareholders, they are people. Our regulators, they are people. Neighbors, people in the environment, they are people. Employees, they are people. Vendors, they are people. Even if you do CSR, the beneficiaries are people. So at the end of this session, we'll be able to have a robust appreciation and understanding around value, business value, and how HR can connect across the business value chain vis-a-vis HR value chain. So we'll also look at a few theories very quickly. Theories like resource-based view, theories like high performance, Harvard model, institutional theory, and so on and so forth. We'll also look at a few examples, to drive our conversation home, both in the private and public sector, and ultimately look at some value scorecard, indicators, and we'll also look at some frameworks very briefly, like ISO-aligned reporting. All things being equal, at the end of this session, whether you join live or you are watching the recording, I would like to encourage you to be able to come up with an HR portfolio, how you align your business HR programs, HR initiatives with the corresponding business drivers. So see, when we talk about business, we have business opportunities, we also have business constraints, and you want to use HR levelers and drivers to exploit, to achieve business opportunities. You also want to use HR drivers and levelers to solve business problems. Are we together? So all things being equal, you should be able to come up with a scorecard that is bespoke, customized to your organization. And if you're a consultant, for the clients you are providing services to. Last but not the least, if you want, you may also want to create a 90-day action plan. 90 days is hypothetically, it can be 100 days, it can be 30 days, something like a roadmap. Okay, identify 3 or 5 or 4 key initiatives per value mode, so that it helps you to be on point. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I want to thank us very sincerely for joining this session, and I assure that it will be worth every moment of our time. I also try to keep it as brief as possible, conscious of the fact that it's an holiday. So what are some of the business drivers, and how does HR connect? Irrespective of the type of business, whether it's for government, for profit, non-profit, faith-based, private sector, we are all looking for growth. Yes, we may define the growth. Growth may be membership, growth may be market share, different dynamics that we use to measure growth. All right. Market expansion, revenue per customer, product innovation. We're also looking at productivity. This word is very important, productivity. Anybody who is an HR practitioner, why should you like HR? You should like HR not because you like people, but because you like productivity, right? Output, for example, per full-time employees, cycle times, for example, turnaround time. Some things that is done for within 1 week, how can it turn to 3 days? Something that is done within 8 hours, how can it become 4 hours? Those are cycle times. How can we get to do more, better, faster? Of course, there are tools in no particular order. For example, if you embrace concepts like Lean Six Sigma, you learn how to eliminate waste. You learn how to, eliminate processes that are redundant. So if you also embrace, for example, tools like project management, you learn things like how do you fast track, how do you run things concurrently, so that ideas and businesses can move forward. How do you also automate? Again, increasingly, in recent times, we have seen scenarios where we have artificial intelligence, AI tools. We also have automation at different levels, HRIS, ERPs, and the list is what? Is endless. So the question is, how are you leveraging these ERPs? How are you leveraging this HRIS? HRIS means HR information systems. How are you leveraging it to drive productivity, to make sure we get things done faster, easier, lower, or if not zero error rates? We're still talking about enterprise value. We've mentioned growth. We've mentioned productivity. Of course, if you are productive, you also need to focus and be conscious of cost reduction, cost minimization. You can make $1 million, but if you spend $1.5 million, really, to what end? Someone who makes $500,000 and spends $200,000 is way richer than somebody who earns $1.5 million and spends $2 million. I hope you understand. And that's why productivity and cost go hand in hand, and it's important we consider it. The third value leveler here is risk, regulatory compliance. Depending on the industry where you are, there's hardly any industry that you won't have some level of regulations. However, some industries are more prone to regulations than others. For example, if you are in pharmaceuticals, you have NAFDAC to contend with. If you're a manufacturer, you may have SON, Standard Organization of Nigeria, to contend with, and so on and so forth. But there's no organization that doesn't have one regulator or the other. So some may have 5, 10, if they play in the intersection of multiple sectors or multiple government regulatory stakeholders. You also want to ensure, even from an HR perspective, is conduct, employee handbook, our SOP, standard operating procedures, our policies, our processes. You want to guide against litigation, or in a situation where if litigation is inevitable and you have to go to court, your organization has to face the court of law, your documentation is robust, you follow your processes and your protocols, and most likely can come out victorious in a court case. We also have cyber risk. Sometimes we may underplay that cyber risk, but I'm sure if you've been around a long time, you'll have seen situations where, what do you call them now? Phishers, people or individuals or organizations who try to steal company data assets. They may even clone maybe your CFO or your MD's email and use it to send email to staff or to customers. So these are real risk. All right, these are real risks. In addition to this, you want to ensure you are building capability so the organization can pivot. We're in a VUCA environment. VUCA here means volatility, uncertainty, chaotic, and ambiguity. Things are changing, things are evolving. Iran and US, or Iran and Israel, you have Ukraine and Russia. Then you also have internal challenges, banditry, kidnapping, and so on and so forth. In West Africa, not too long ago, we had a lot of coups, military taking over. All of these things have impact. Look at what is happening today in the Strait of Hormuz. Strait of Hormuz is responsible for passage of 20% of oil movement. And it's not just oil, fertilizer movement, and certain other critical commodities that may serve as inputs to manufacturing, for example, or logistics, movement, and so on and so forth. Irrespective of where you are based, listening to this call right now, I can almost always guarantee that in the last 4 weeks, for example, the cost of transportation for all your employees have gone up. It doesn't matter whether your employees drive themselves. If they do drive themselves, Austin, please mute your mic. Thank you. God bless you, Austin. If they do drive themselves, for example, it's obvious that they are spending more on fuel. Okay. And if they don't drive themselves, if they take Uber, Bolt, Taxify, if they even take the public transports, hopping from one bus to the other, and so on and so forth, you will also realize that their cost of commuting has come up. And if you're here and you say, oh, no, in my organization, we're working 100% remote, I also put it to you that most likely the cost of electricity, either generator, and so on and so forth. Many people have had to, if they can, invest in alternative power. Maybe, what do you call it now? Solar panels, what do you call it now? Inverters, batteries, laptops. Some people now have 2 laptops so that if one goes down, they can transition to the other. So these are things you need to build your workforce across the cadre from entry to leadership to be able to evolve and adapt so that we can be agile and nimble. To also have a robust succession plan, leadership bench. People can leave the organization for greener pastures. They can relocate. People may also be promoted internally. Maybe you set up a new business subsidiary and you move them out. It's good for the organization, but you have created a gap, here. You have created a gap here. And you need to fill it. That's a leadership bench strength. Then you're also trying to create an organization with resilience. Resilience, for lack of a better word, is like staying power. If for example, the price of your product and services is crashed due to the activities of your competitor, will you still be standing? If there is an alternative to the product that you are providing, will you still be standing? If government bans a critical raw material input for your organization, so these scenarios, for example, if you don't have resilience, you will not thrive, you will not survive, you will not be able to cope. I hope it makes sense. And these are things that is part of the responsibility of HR, working with other stakeholders to ensure we build a resilient organization. Again, I know we're already, today's March 19, if I'm not mistaken. Happy holidays once again. I'm sure today's a public holiday, but we have been advised that the fasting is still on, so the real celebrations will be tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Q1 is almost over. Q1 means quarter one, January, February, March. It's not too late to relook your HR programs for your organization or for your clients to see if it is still robust, if there are things you need to do. With due respect to all of us, very few of us, very few people saw the ongoing war in the Middle East coming. Very few people saw it. How is it affecting your business? How is it affecting your customers, your consumers? Their purchasing power, their disposable income. How is it affecting it? So HR is a support activity. I use that word support with all sense of responsibility and respect. I know maybe one or two people, even on this call, we've had conversations in the past where somebody say, when it comes to maybe bonus or certain benefits, the proportion or percentage or weight allocated to support function is not as high as what is allocated to maybe front end functions or commercial functions or revenue generating functions. My colleague and sister Irene, we were together somewhere on Saturday, and she was sharing about how HR must continuously work on making sure we position as a profit center and not a cost center. And I agree completely with that. However, no matter what you do, there will always be certain aspects of your departmental function that will be support. There will be aspect that is strategic. You remember the David Ulrich business partner model. You have HR as change agent, HR as business partner. You also have HR as employee champion. Then you have HR as administrative expert. All the four must work in sync effectively. If you drop the ball anywhere, it's going to undermine your overall output and productivity. So when I use support here, I don't use it lightly. I'm not using it in a mundane capacity, especially because the support will amplify value creation. So a lot of things we do, we leverage on technology, we provide support to all the departments. It doesn't matter primary activities being done in an organization. Priscilla, please mute your mic. Priscilla, thank you, Priscilla. Don't worry, today I'll be mentioning names. It's a way to recognize people. So it doesn't matter the value chain that you are working on. Okay. Inbound operations, outbound marketing, sales, servicing, manufacturing, production, creativity, and so on and so forth. Now, what are the HR value hypotheses? We create value when we do a lot of things. But just to mention a few, we create value when we build distinctive capabilities, skills, leadership, and culture. Depending on what you do, maybe you are in manufacturing and you install or you procure a new manufacturing plant or machinery that maybe just for ease of this conversation. So imagine you are a bottling company. You are able to produce 1,000 bottles of soft drink per hour. You now buy an equipment that can produce 2,000 bottles of soft drink per hour. You can see that that's value. But that value is an engineering value. In fact, it is possible that hitherto, when you are using the machinery that could produce 1,000 bottles per hour, you add 100 staff on that line. But with the new machinery equipment that can produce 2,000 bottles per hour, you may even need 55 staff, which means that from an HR perspective, if you are thinking only about people, you may need to use less people to do more work. You understand what I mean? But these 55 people may have more skills than the 100 people on the aggregate because the new tool, the new equipment may be more high-tech. So it doesn't sometimes mean that because population of employees drop from 100 to 55, it doesn't mean that the wage bill will drop. I'm pausing. Does somebody understand what I just said? That you drop employee from 100 to 55 does not necessarily mean your wage bill will drop. It may just be that while the head count is dropping, the skill sets required by this 55 may be more technical in some instances. Now, it's not compulsory that it must increase, but I'm just bringing that to our consciousness and our awareness. So HR builds distinctive capabilities, skills. So we have a lot of tools that we use, from training, development, mentoring, coaching, job rotation, job shadowing, secondment, local training, foreign training, and so on and so forth. Leadership development programs, so both internal and external, and then culture. In Nigeria, there are many banks, and I have friends who have worked in, say, 4 or 5 banks. While technically, due to the regulatory requirement of banks, almost all the functions and services of banks are the same. Yes, they may have slightly different softwares or tools, but there are a lot of things that are the same. But they will tell you that the culture of Bank A is not necessarily the same as the culture of Bank B or C or D. And you will see it, for example, in their approach to customer service. You will see it in their approach to when there are challenges or technology. Again, we are not holding brief for any organization. All organizations have their strengths and all will have their corresponding weakness. But there are banks today that they are reputable for swiftness of transaction, alert, and confirmation, and ease of transfer of funds. That's a value proposition. But with time, others may catch up with it. Some are already catching up with it. HR also helps with what? Improving execution. So the first one is what? Capability. Distinctive capability that for somehow, to some extent, may be hard to copy or may not be easy to copy or may not be fast to copy. But eventually they will catch up. But don't forget, and that's why we focus on innovation, that as people are trying to imitate you, as people are trying to copy you, you too, you are learning, you are evolving, you are becoming better. And of course, you are looking at what others are doing and trying to copy what you can, where you can. You understand what I mean? So execution is key. I may be getting ahead of myself, but it's okay. You see, sometimes many organizations have beautiful strategies on paper, just like many companies have beautiful strategies on paper. Nigeria, I'm an economist, and even from way back, I've had the opportunity to work in Federal Government Research Institute as intern, even when I was in my undergraduate and postgraduate studies. And I came across, for example, Nigerians, the different development plans, the different rolling plans. If you look at these plans on paper, we say, wow. Let me take, we are mature on this call. Some of us remember Vision 2010 under the administration of late General Sani Abacha. Then let me go to a global level. Do we still remember the Millennium Development Goals? Then it evolved and became SDG, Sustainable Development Goals. All of these are examples of strategies. But what is the difference between country A and country B? It is execution. It is execution. Thank you so much, Esther. Thank you. I see your comments and I appreciate it. So one of the things HR has to do better is how do we drive execution where we work? That is why, let me give you 1 or 2 examples. So you see that management meeting most organizations do maybe every Monday or every Friday or whatever time they choose is an HR program. Now, I agree it may be the MD's office that is championing it or CEO or whatever. But if you look at the structure of that meeting, how how do we work on the agenda? How do we follow up on action points? How is the engagement in the meeting? How does it go? Is it that just one person asks questions, nobody else asks questions? Do we allow dissenting voice? Do we allow for reasonable debate and contribution? All of these things I just described around a weekly management meeting or a weekly departmental meeting may be critical and pivotal for productivity. The third HR value hypothesis here is how does HR work with relevant stakeholders to reduce enterprise risk from compliance to conduct to safety to data. So when you do things as simple as employee verification, background check, these are things that help in compliance. You don't want somebody that maybe has stolen from 2, 3 other organizations to come and join you. Is a thief is a thief. In fact, it may not be a superior thief, always looking for loopholes to extort, to compromise the organization or the business, as the case may be. You're also looking at reducing enterprise risk. It can be from a safety perspective. So just to mention, I know we know, some departments we work with, internal audits. Okay, again, different organizations may have different nomenclature for some of these things. Some organizations even have risk departments or risk and audits. Okay, conduct, now that speaks to disciplinary issues, which they majorly may lie with HR or with HR in conjunction with audit, depending on if the conduct or misconduct, for example, borders around fraud and so on and so forth, and there may be need for investigation. If you also have HSC, health, safety, and environment, okay, the IT for data. So I'm highlighting all of these things to show how everybody's job is HR's business. And increasingly, especially because we are business partners, we want to talk to head of departments, we want to talk to stakeholders. How can you be more in their affairs? I don't want to use the word intrude or poke nose because you are not. So do you want to come up with a roster of how maybe once in a month, at least you sit in the departmental meetings of your critical of the departments that you will consider are driving primary activity. Now, you may sit in the meeting live or you may listen to the meeting. There are organizations today, most meetings are online or physical or hybrid. What do I mean? Especially if your organization is in more than one location. So even though the meeting may be a physical meeting, some are joining from other branches or from up country. And so the primary meeting tool is maybe Outlook or something, and it's recorded. So even if you are not able to sit in live into the meeting, you may go to the recording and play the 1-hour session, 2-hour session, and listen so that you can understand the conversations that is happening in each department and how HR can provide support. All right, so this is not exhaustive, but let me recap here. HR creates business value when we help build distinctive capabilities around skills, around leadership, and around culture. HR helps build business value when we help to improve execution. So, for example, work tools can affect execution. Timely recruitment can affect execution. Training and development can enhance execution, and so on and so forth. Okay, the organogram can affect execution. You understand? How do we also reduce enterprise risk across chains like compliance, conduct, safety, and data, and others? How do we improve the fourth point? How do we improve customer outcomes through people system? Don't forget that we have internal customers and external customers. So while HR may be supporting the internal customer, but you are supporting the internal customers so that they can effectively support the external customer. So how do we know if our HR initiative is working? It is the impact it is having on external customers. Are we meeting the needs of our customers more efficiently, more profitably, more innovatively? Is the turnaround reducing? Are we ensuring we have near zero complaints? And when we have complaints, do we resolve the complaints swiftly and quickly and so on and so forth? Ladies and gentlemen, I hope we find this session helpful so far. So on a lighter note, sometimes maybe I'm working on something in the office or an assignment or a project, and then I'll just get an idea that, look, I need to do a webinar on this. Especially if that thing is making sense to me, is helping me take my career or my HR profession to the next level. So as a leader, you are carrying yourself along, but you are carrying people along too, so that people can learn. It may also look like, oh, I've not said anything new, but if you listen, you will see that I'm speaking from depth, and deep, can relate with depth. And using some of this nomenclature will help us relook our activities and be able to add more value in the organization. One of the reasons I also do some of these sessions, and especially the ones I've done in 2026 this year, is I want to elevate the portfolio of HR practitioners so that you are not arrogant, but you are confident. Either when you are engaging with your C-suite or when you are engaging with your client. And it can, if you are not already in C-suite, it helps you aspire for C-suite role, and you earn the role or the seat based on the value of your contributions, your comments, and your initiatives in action. Now, still talking about value. For those of us that joined this session from the beginning, we already highlighted this value area. So value creation is about new or expanded business value, growth, innovation, market entry, capability advantage. Okay, growth, innovation, market entry, capability advantage. You can easily see HR in the capability advantage, but HR2 is very instrumental to growth, innovation, market entry. Next is value realization. In other words, how do we capture the intended value from strategy? Which means as HR, you must have the overall business strategy. Okay, things like adoption, productivity, execution discipline, and outcomes. That is some of the drivers that unlock value realization. Then the third point, which is value enablement. How do we build the people operating system? I'm sure all of us on this call, we've had this phrase before, and we've had it multiple times. Enabling environment. Does that sound super familiar? Enabling environment. Now, you want to build a people operating system. So things like governance. So when you hear concepts like corporate governance, so if you're a senior HR person here, the more you know and learn about corporate governance, the better, because corporate governance generally helps create a people operating system, which is critical and pivotal to value enablement. Platforms, leadership systems, ways of working, culture, how we do things here. Okay, so things that help drive enablement will include our core values. So are our core values just on paper or on the walls of our offices, or are we living them out literally? Are we together? Moving forward, we now have value protection. You can create something and you can lose it. In fact, sometimes you can lose something faster than create it. Recently on HR mentorship, in the HR mentorship community, we created an HR mentorship investment cycle, learning cycle. Why? Yes, we know that one of the things we are doing as a community is we are equipping our members to be able to become better, more competent, and earn more. But even if you are earning 10 naira, are you saving 1 naira out of it? We created that community to help them protect some of the values they are already creating and the future value they will create. Are we together? So when we talk about value protection, we want to make sure that we reduce downside, compliance, conduct, safety, litigation, fraud, You want to create resiliency. That's why in HR and in the business, there are certain insurances the business will take. It's part of value protection. In no particular order. So maybe you're in a building. Do you have insurance for that building? Property assurance. Do you have insurance for your vehicles? Do you have insurance for professional, what do you call it? Professional negligence or liability. When you outsource some of the functions in your organization, part of what you are trying to do is value protection. You are letting more competent business organization handle certain functions because they are the professionals in that area. So you get to protect yourself. You have a backup, and so on and so forth. Last but not the least is people impact. Okay. And what's people impact? Employee outcomes that power performance, all right, experience, engagement, well-being, and inclusion. All of these factors enable performance. Performance here means employee performance, team performance, and organizational performance. So the more you enrich the experience of your employees, the better they can do more for the customers and create value. The more engaged they are, the more they want to, what's the word now? Disposable, discretionary energy and effort. They want to go over and above the call of duty to make sure that they get solutions for clients, for customers, internal and external. Well-being too is important. If you're not feeling fine, and when I say feel fine, I speak to both emotional, mental, spiritual, financial, all the dimensions of wellness as much as possible. Okay. And then inclusion and fairness. Inclusion means, you may have people in the organization that may not be from the dominant ethnic group, dominant gender, dominant background, whatever. But do you give them a voice? Do you give them a sense of belonging? Or are you keeping them on edge such that they are just hanging on there and looking for a place where they think they truly belong? And when we talk about diversity, we must learn to leverage on it. And without trying to be patronizing, look at a country like United States of America in the past. What did they do? They created a visa lottery. One of the concepts around this visa lottery system was, in quotes, open your country to everybody in the world, and then, in quotes, cherry pick people from across the world, so to speak, the best of the best, or very good people, and then bring them to their own country and pick their brains, leverage on their talents, and become, so to speak, the best country in the world. One of the reasons why they are achieving and sustaining that is that they are picking brains from all cultures, all tribes, all other nations. Why some people are trying to insulate themselves. Yes, there may be advantages to if you are into yourself, but nobody knows it all. Absolutely nobody. And the world is a global community and we need to support ourselves. So you want to create value, you want to realize the value, you want to ensure that there are people operating system, and you enable this, and then you protect the value, and then you create people impact. Again, look at your HR program for 2026. Q1 rounding up in the next few days is an opportunity to reevaluate and update. What are the value creation programs you have? What are the value realization programs that you have? What are the value enablement programs that you have? What are the value protection programs that you have? And how is it leading to people impact? Now, you see that some of these things may be resident with other departments. Or do you now see that you need to engage with them? You need to show interest. You need to find out that, for example, we are renewing our insurance premium as when due. You see, some of these things don't matter if there's no problem. And there may be no problem for 3 years. But the day there is a problem, and then your insurance papers have expired, it's not going to be funny at all. So A few diagnostic questions in no particular order and not exhaustive in any way. What value mode is underinvested with respect to your business strategy? What value mode? The value mode are the 5 values here: creation, realization, enablement, protection, and impact. Okay. Where is HR busy but not creating value? I want that to sink in. As a business function, HR department, or as a person, HR professional, where are we busy, but you are not really and truly creating value? It doesn't mean you are putting effort, but how do you know value is created? You want to look at the business value drivers of the firm, of the organization. So anything that is not touching that may just be nice to have, like extracurricular activities. And then what would you stop doing? Or should you stop doing? Stop may not be completely stop, it may be reduced, so that I'm also fair to some of us on this call. Then what are we going to start? And last but not the least, what are we going to scale? Scale means do more of. So if you will indulge me, in the chat box, I will read them subsequently, but you can just type, I will stop doing or I will reduce doing, put those things there. You also type, I will start doing, put those things there. And then you also say, I will scale or do more of. Now, it's what somebody, individual A is starting, maybe what individual B is stopping. So don't try and be politically right. We are saying relative to your organization and your role, what will you stop doing or reduce doing? What will you start doing? What will you scale? I will come back later to the charts if we cooperate and pick some of them up. Hopefully, we can also learn from each other. So we are saying that the HR value chain must support the business value chain. So HR is a system. We have inputs, we have processes, we have outcomes, and then it accumulates ultimately into business results. And value is key. Now, these are some of the HR value chain. It's not exhaustive, it's not everything, but I'm sure we can relate with the few ones I've highlighted here. Workforce strategy, where you plan. If we know the business plan for the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years, then what workforce plans would we need to bring it to fruition, to reality? Okay, how do we now attract those talents if we don't have them already? Talent acquisition. How do we activate those talents we bring on board, onboarding and deployment? How do we develop them? Learning, training, development, skills. How do we ensure they are productive? That's performance and leadership. How do we compensate them? How do we reward them? Recognition and reward. How do we sustain them? Engagement and ER. ER means employee relations. And then let me also add industrial relations if you are in a unionized environment. Last but not the least, how do you now renew? Things must come to an end, but the end does not have to be acrimonious or bitter. So exit, how do you even have an alumni? I think I've said it here before, and a lot of us know, but just in case some people who may not be aware, we have people from veterans to entry level in our HR community who also listen to this call. So sometimes if you are too simple, don't be offended. And if you are too technical, don't also be offended. We try to give everybody something from each session we do here. Now, there are organizations today that they have a robust alumni. For example, they even have like a WhatsApp group. For example, maybe every year or once in 6 months, they have a physical meeting. It can be online, it can be, like you do end of year party for your staff. Why? Many organizations who have a good alumni network, especially if they are in service, you will see that they get a lot of clients. So the alumni ex-staff becomes their brand ambassadors. They bring in, what do you call it? Business for them. Some may even have schemes like referral schemes, get a commission. Some they are not giving any commission, it's just are doing it out of goodwill. Because when you were there, they supported you. You had a very positive, enabling environment, and you are happy to keep the organization working. Once something is on your CV, and I say this respectfully, God forbid, a place you worked 5 years ago, if they fold up and it becomes public knowledge that it has folded up, does that look good on your CV? Yes, you can explain that while you were there 5 years ago, it didn't fold up. But you are trying to say you didn't help build resilience. You didn't help build sustainability. All right. So everything we do in HR affects creation, value realization, value enablement, and value protection. Ultimately, people impact is the what? Is the outcome. Employee experience, engagement, and so on and so forth. And they are measurable drivers of productivity, quality, safety, and customer outcomes when linked to operating base. Now, these are just a few theories, again, that help us. For those of us that did HR at any level, when I say did HR, I mean we studied it either as a course, as a module, or a certification. There's nothing here you will not have come across. But sometimes, when we are doing those certifications or those courses in school, we thought the things are just abstract. And let me explain again for the umpteenth time, but it's worth reiterating that when you see any theory, especially in social science, a theory is what people have practiced and have delivered results. So academicians now codify that thing. So when people say it's theory, just theory, and they say it in a condescending manner that because it is theory, it is worthless, I laugh. Is cancer treatment not theory? Is malaria treatment not theory? Pharmaceutical drugs, all the drugs you see, are they not theory? If you did chemistry, you will know that they are compounds that are put together. Is water not theory? H2O. That's the theory of water. Anytime you are able to combine H in two places with O in one place, you create water. I'm saying this because, please, I don't want anybody in my circle to hate theories and think theories are abstract. Yes, when you have a model, in economics, we say all things being equal, but you are in an organization or a system. So you may not apply the theory hook, line, and sinker. You must consider the peculiarity of the organization and adjust the model and the implementation. So don't say you take something was done in General Electric, then you now bring it to First Bank. It's not going to work exactly the same way. It's not going to play out exactly the same way because the context and the society and the context is not the same. So that doesn't invalidate the theory. Are we together? So let me just take one or two here. AMO speaks to ability, motivation, and opportunity. So the core proposition is that performance improves when people have what? Ability, when they are motivated, and then when they have the opportunity to contribute. So as HR, what are we supposed to do? Design HR systems, that hire for skill, reward meaningfully, ensure people have a meaning. So people are not just coming to work for the salary. They feel like they are solving a societal problem. Permit me to use this example. If you are a true clergyman, a true alpha, imam, pastor, you should do it because you love God and you love people. Ultimately, all of us, whatever we do, we should have that kind of pastoral disposition. I'll give you an example, and I'm saying this with all sense of humility. I'm not using it to brag or something. So, for example, I'm not supposed to be doing this session this evening. I'm under the weather. But I put myself together, created buckets of rest to be strong enough to do it now. Why? I love what I'm doing now. I'm not paid for it. I'm not compensated for it. And I don't have to. So you want to almost make sure that almost everybody you have in your organization can almost work for free. Now, if you can work for free and then we're not paying you well, what do you think will happen? Quantum productivity. Imagine you are taking a shower in the morning or in the evening before you go to rest at night. And in the shower, while taking the shower, you are thinking about business problems and how HR can solve it. That will only happen when you have motivation. If you have ability and you have the opportunity to what? Contribute. Let me pick another one. Institutional theory. Yeah. So organizations face pressure for legitimacy, laws, norms, professional standards, and so on and so forth. What HR must do, try to provide and support compliance, governance, and ethical practice so that we can continue to, be in business legitimately, legally, and also sustainably. Very, very important. Change theory. Transformations fails without what? Urgency, without a coalition, without a vision, without communication, and without enforcement. I'm sure some of us must have come across the Lewin change theory, and I've forgotten the other one. It's not Kotler. I'll remember, or I mean, even reference it. But when you are trying to do something new in the organization, that new thing, even though it's a good thing, doesn't mean people will like it. New things and good things can also be inconvenient. It's not every new thing that we just love and want to embrace immediately. You understand what I mean? Because if something is new, it means it's different. It means, so, you may be doing something for a while, even though that's not the best way to do it. But because you are already used to it, it's now comfortable. Let me give you one funny example. Long time ago, and I'm sure if you have been using Gmail for a while, you will notice that they've changed their interface a couple of times over the years. So, back then, when they introduce a new interface, what Gmail would do is that it will give you the option to either continue on the current interface or give you the opportunity to, what's the word? Upgrade to the new interface. You get? So for like 6 months or 1 year, I refused to upgrade. Why? I understood, I was conversant, familiar with the current interface. Then something now came up, when they now say in 30 days' time, we'll no longer support the current interface, blah, blah, blah. So reluctantly, my people, reluctantly, I upgraded to the new interface. Can I shock you? 3 or 4 days after upgrading, I say, oh my God, why didn't I upgrade 1 year earlier? What was my problem? Change management, familiarity with the current reality, which does not mean it is the best reality. So when you are introducing anything to the organization, to the employees, to the different departments, even though you know that it is good, you know it will, for example, maybe you introduce a new HRIS, Human Resource Information System. Maybe they've been using one before, and then you change it to a better, more holistic. Please, you have to leverage change theory. Create urgency, build coalition, use the vision to and communicate effectively and reinforce. So HR must enable adoption via leadership alignment, capability, incentives, and culture anchoring. I hope that makes sense. All right. Thank you so much, Ade. Ade says that's quantum productivity. When you love what you do and you get paid for it. And I hope and pray for all of us on this call tonight that if we are not already there, we'll get to that state and phase in our career where we'll be able to deliver quantum solutions and get rewarded massively for it too. Let me just take one more theory here, which is the resource-based view, RBV. And the core proposition here is that, it speaks to sustained advantage. The fact that sustained advantage comes from what? Look at these words. Rare. You know what it means for something to be rare? Inimitable. It's not big English. Inimitable. Then well-organized resources. Now, what must HR do here? You want to make sure that you are building distinctive capabilities, sales excellence, risk discipline, culture, service culture. Again, especially when you work in a competitive sector, no matter what you build, over time, especially if what you build is generating results, people will find out that why is company A succeeding more than company B? and then company B will begin to attempt to copy it. That's why we must never rest on our oars and continue to do better. Let's just look at a few examples here. So I'll try not to repeat anything here. Just some examples in fintech, in banking, for example, frontline sales capability plus incentive redesign to shift product mix and reduce churn. In telecom, field force reskilling for new network rollouts. Talent mobility to cover new regions. In fast-moving consumer goods, which is FMCG, route to market productivity via supervisor coaching plus performance cadence. In oil and gas, competency assurance, pipeline, leadership pipeline for safety critical roles. Healthcare, for example, clinical workforce planning to reduce understaffing. Shift design to reduce what? Burnout. Public sector, service delivery improvement through role clarity, skill standards, and accountability systems. If you are currently in any of this sector or you've worked in any, I'm sure you can relate with one or two things from these examples. So, very important, yes, that change theory is quota. The other one is Lewin, this is quota. You want to ensure that HR prevents failure at any level. You want to ensure that you drive urgency, you build coalition, you try to identify and unlock and showcase quick wins so that you don't have adoption fatigue and people are incentivized to do more and go on with it, and so on and so forth. So it is very important that for value realization, we turn strategy into executed outcomes. Most value is lost in what? Execution, not in strategy. I highlighted and alluded to that copiously earlier in the same in today's conversation, this session. So HR enables realization by creating the conditions for adoption, performance, and sustained behavioral change. So you have a strategy intent, priority outcomes and measure. You have an operating model, roles, decision rights and governance, then capabilities, skills, tools for execution, then incentives, rewards, and consequences are aligned, and adoption, manager redeem, and what? Reinforcement. So very, very important. In public sector digitization process, a few, if not all, in most part of the world are digitizing increasingly. Some have digitized the entire state, some have digitized some specific important departments, But HR will help realize value by helping us reskilling for new roles. That's why, I got to a time where everybody had to learn how to use computer. That was part of the skilling. Today, some people don't have secretaries anymore. You have to do it yourself. Align performance and consequences, simplify standard operating procedures, or create and document and even update it. And then coaching managers to sustain adoption. So these are examples, just examples as I begin to attempt to wrap up. Again, telecoms want to standardize deployment playbooks for field teams across region. In manufacturing, you want to ensure you have lean HR operations. What do we mean by that? You are agile, you are nimble, faster hiring, faster onboarding cycle. Now, I was talking to a colleague a few weeks ago, and he was telling me that in the organization, I won't mention the name, the sales department wants to take over recruitment of sales staff from HR. And I said, why? He said the sales department says HR is too slow. That the ease at which people leave the company is not the same ease at which people join. While there may be advantages to that, guess what we suffer? Due process, documentation. Of course, they need to come to a win-win to see how they can resolve that issue. But that speaks to lean HR operations without compromising on compliance and risk. Healthcare will train shift bidding systems to balance staffing and burnout. Mentioned that NGOs, safeguarding policies, training to reduce reputational and operational risk. So, how do we enable domains? HR governance, decision rights, very important. Policies and standards, make sure they are fit for purpose. Some of us are always in the habit of asking for templates or policies, good, but please customize, adjust, adapt, modify. Don't just do copy and paste, copy, modify, and then use. Manager enablements, toolkits, playbook, workforce planning, skill frameworks, shared services, and process excellence. Key question here. What operation friction can HR remove? What operational friction? What friction can HR remove? Very, very important. I hope we are finding value from this conversation. I'm just trying to check the chat box in case I missed anything. Thank you so much, Esther. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I won't read it out, but I appreciate that. Yes, really and truly, anybody who genuinely gives, it doesn't matter. You get rewarded. Let me say it's press down, shaking together, and running over. You will also not lack. And when I say lack, it's resources. People will come through for you. Opportunities will seek you out. You will be somewhere and people will come and, come to your aid and attention. Even your offsprings, they'll benefit from it. Let's just make sure we pay it forward, whatever we can do. All right. Even where we work today, the people in our community, in our neighborhood, in our religious cycles, let's all of us uplift. If all of us do something, in quotes, we won't rely too much on the government. Value protection, we've spoken extensively around this, but a few examples more here. Labor Acts, contract worker protection, recruitment rules and employment terms, the Nigerian Data Privacy Act, Data Protection Act, Governance of Employee Data, Pension Reform Act, and then the global parallels. Some of these acts have, so for labor now, you have International Labor Organization, and they're always releasing from time to time updates, and you need to read it so that we can domesticate it in our organization and as much as possible. People impacts, people, customer, financial. People, internal customer, and then external customer, and then financial. Employee experience leads to what? Engagement and retention leads to service quality and productivity. So, for example, when we do our pulse survey, how do we measure employee experience? Net promoter score, pulse indices, manager effectiveness, and so on and so forth. Engagement and retention, workforce stability, critical role turnover, regrettable attrition, time to productivity, internal mobility. These are some of the, what do you call it, KPIs, indicators. Then quality, service quality and productivity, capability, skills coverage, certification rates, bench staff. But see that flow from employee experience to engagement and retention to service quality and production, then to customer outcomes. Okay. And sometimes I smile when on a consistent level, we are good to colleagues internally, but want colleagues to be friendly to customers. It's a induced or forced politeness. If we are warm internally to each other, again, when I say when we are warm to each other, I'm not saying if somebody misbehaved, we shouldn't call out bad behavior, we shouldn't run through our disciplinary process. But when consistently we are warm, we treat people with dignity and respect. You won't need to beg them to treat customers, partners, other stakeholders with dignity. It's going to be an input-output type thing. And once you do that, customer outcomes lead towards revenue and profit. So HR should measure people impact as leading indicators that predict customer and financial outcomes. Well-being and inclusion, how do you measure some of these things? We know that already: absence, burnout, social incidents, pay equity, and so on and so forth. We need to wrap up in the next few minutes, ladies and gentlemen. So I'll just give us 1 or 2 minutes to look at the remaining slides. Our value scorecard. So you may want to use a balanced approach. Leading indicators, which speaks about capabilities, behaviors, and the health of our processes. And then lagging indicators, customer plus financial outcomes. Leading means what did we do first? Lagging means what comes after. So if we check and we track and we validate the leading, all things being equal, the lagging will be by default. But if you don't do the leading well, what will happen to the lagging? You can predict upfront. Okay, risk indicators. So you have leading indicators, you have lagging indicators, you also have risk indicators. Again, these are some ideas for one or two people on this call. If you want to rejig your KPIs going forward, ask, what are the leading indicators here? Some of us have only lagging indicators. You need to have leading so that we can arrive at the lagging. Then what are the risk indicators here? What can go wrong? What can embarrass us? Okay, so every HR initiative must have a what? Measurable mechanism and business outcome it predicts. So it makes us robust, you know. So in a nutshell, the balanced scorecard principle here, measure what drives performance, which is capability plus process, and what reflects performance, customer plus commercial, not just only HR activity volume. ISO 3414, which focuses on human capital reporting, provides us with some useful metrics. You know, ISO is International Standard Organization, okay, which is global, all right? Workforce composition, diversity, costs, productivity, health, safety, and well-being, leadership, skills and capabilities, recruitment, mobility and turnover, culture, compliance, and much more. So maybe you want to start, add any of these things you don't already take seriously and add it to enhance the robustness of your KPI. So how does HR deliver the value chain? At scale, you know, HRBPs, then the Center of Excellence, and then shared services. Okay, so as much as possible, you want to adapt, you cannot just doing copy and paste. So the operation model must match business complexity. Some of us are operating in multiple locations. We are in southwest, southeast, south, northwest, northeast, north central. Let me ask this. For those of us who have a business pan Nigeria, do you remember, maybe even now in some communities, in some states, I won't mention them, that on Monday you couldn't go to work? Can anybody relate that on Monday, in some of your offices, in the head office, you will go to work on Monday, but in some of your branches, you couldn't go to work? You couldn't do anything about it. Some organizations now started going to work on Saturday in some of those branches, but they were not going to work on Saturday in some other branches. That's adaptation. Thank you so much, Adi. Okay, so in the HRBP model, you know, consulting, diagnostics, stakeholder management, and execution. Note that word, stakeholder management. All your stakeholders will not be the same or alike. Some will like numbers, some will like respect, some will like high service. You must know what works for all those stakeholders. As much as nothing they're asking for is unethical, you want to be able to satisfy all of them. The people who like greeting, you greet them very well. The people who like sa, you sa, ma, them very well. There's a proverb in Southwest Nigeria that says, call the madman the husband of the bride so that he can let us pass. If you want to claim rights with madman, you won't get to your destination, and it won't matter at the end of the day because it was a madman that stopped you. Just respect the madman so that you can get the results. Shared services, service levels agreement, case management, processes, excellence, you know, all these are our SOPs. They come in handy for shared service. You know, some of us, you have subsidiaries. Not every subsidiary that must have their HR, this HR can have a center of excellence where you design standards, talent, reward, employee relations, organizational development, and analytics. So some people have worked for long as HRBP and they transition to COEs. Some people also transition from COE to HRBP. And you can be a generalist, you know, and work from shared service, as the case may be. But they say let's separate transactional work from advisory work so that we can measure HR business partners on business outcomes, not HR activity. So if you are the HRBP for production, can your KPI be your monthly production? If you are the HRBP for sales, can your KPI be the sales targets? If you are the HRBP for customer service department, can your KPI be the customer satisfaction scores? Do you understand? Your KPI should not necessarily be your HR work. It's the business outcome. Of course, your HR KPI can now be the leading indicator, while the business KPIs become the lagging indicator. I hope I've not shaken any table. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm trying to end this session. Help me to end it. So, core HR capabilities. HR means HR business partner. Even if you're an HR generalist, even if you're head of HR or chief people HR, you are technically still an HR business partner. So don't say, oh, my current designation is not HRBP. We mean any HR professional, business and financial acumen. You must, to a reasonable, meaningful, fundamental level, be able to read profit or loss drivers, unit economics, value drivers, and trade-offs. Consulting and influence, problem framing, stakeholder mapping, contracting facilitation, workforce analytics, causality logic, segmentation, experimentation, dashboards, organizational design, roles, spans and layers, decision rights, team topology. Let me use another word, organogram. Before someone says which one is team topology now. Employee relations and risk, investigations, discipline, governance, compliance, case management. I want to talk about case management. When there are disciplinary issues, how you approach the resolution matters. If you don't approach some, for example, with the right confidentiality, you may turn it to sensationalism and spread rumors, create bad blood, and so on and so forth, and have divisions in the organization. Last but not the least, change and capability building, adoption, leadership alignment, learning, transfer, and reinforcement. So these are very key. All right, so the maturity ladder here, level 1, L1, transactional, HR delivers processes, success is equal to activity volume. Please, there will always be transactions in what we do. Please, no matter what, you must do it well. Then we go to level 2, service quality. Shared services, service levels agreement, success is about speed and accuracy, not just activity and volume. And we must do level 2 very well. Speed and accuracy. Level 3, HRBP solve problems. Success is equal to leader satisfaction and problem resolution. We must do level 3 very well. Level 4, value partner. HR predicts outcomes. Success is equal to business what? KPIs and risk reduction. So we must achieve business KPIs. We must achieve risk reduction. Level 4, value architects. HR shapes strategy. Success is equal to what? Capability advantage and resilience. So imagine your next interview, external or internal, and then they say, tell us about what you have done in HR and what you can do. And you say, oh, let me speak to this, your question in 5 layers. In 1 minute, let me address some transactional things I've done. Second minute, let me speak to service quality things I've done. Third minute, let me speak to advisory things I've done. Fourth minute, let me speak to value partnership things that I've done. Last minute, let me speak to value architecture, and you give example, you give the outcome, and you show that from transactional to value. You are there. Level 1 to 5. I just gave you a model to help you showcase your skills and capacity, because I can sense that some people are due for a career shift internally or externally. Grab it with 2 hands. Ladies and gentlemen, we won't do this on this call. I hope you will do it on your own, a 30 or 60 or 90-day roadmap. I give you the permission if you want. If you do it and you want me to review for you, you can send it to my email, but please give me like 48 hours turnaround time. All right, when you send it to me, I will look at it for you. All right. So that's this session. For me, the main gain for me is, what will you do differently? Let me revert back to something I mentioned earlier. What would you stop or reduce? What would you start doing? And what would you scale? Ladies and gentlemen, HR value is not a slogan, it's a measurable mechanism linked towards business value drivers. All right, if you like to read, some of you are bookish in nature. There are texts you can read there, Barney, 1991 on resource-based view, Kaplan and Norton, balance scorecard, quota, leading change, ISO 30414, human capital reporting, and so on and so forth. So, ladies and gentlemen, My name is Oluyemi Adeosun, and I'm still your guy. Any questions around the subject matter of today? Any comments? Any contributions? You can still take a few. Who is going first? Any comments? Any contribution? Say something. Oh, I see one hand up. I'm excited. Esther, you have the floor, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, doctor.
Thank you, my
I
sister.
enjoyed the I enjoyed the session so well. I was opportune to be able to join on time today. Most time
Fantastic.
before one or two things that I'm done before entering the room, it will be that we're rounding up, or I won't get that much. So I want to really appreciate you for what I listened to, what I learned today. The value proposition is huge. But then my question thereafter is this: how do I assess these resources? Not just this, other recordings, other activities that you've done, which are more than 500, 500 outputs that you have put out there in YouTube. It is inundating listening to them one by one. Is it possible I have access to these resources so that I can really digest them without having to miss anything? Thank you, sir. That's my comment.
Well, thank you so much for your feedback and your question. For now, the YouTube is the compendium of the resources. You can use whatever approach works for you. I know people on this call, I won't mention names, but I know people on this call, for example, when they are going from their house to their office every morning, they are in Lagos, so they have traffic time. They listen to a webinar. When they are going home too, they listen to a webinar. And because sometimes they spend more than 1 hour on average to go to work, and less than 1 hour, they do 2 webinars a day. So in 1 month, they've done 60 webinars. And of course, they are intentional. They may pick a subdomain of HR. So if you go to the YouTube channel, we have what we call playlist. All right. So we have HR leadership, that's a playlist. We have HR strategy, that's a playlist. We have regulatory compliance, that's a playlist. We have performance management. Name any major, we even have HR trends. We have HR and taxation. So depending on, if you want something, you create the time for it. That's what I'm saying. And that does not belittle your tight schedule. It's just, how am I able to be doing the webinars endlessly? Isn't it inundating? Well, I do it anyway. All right. The Lord is your strength, my sister. If I get a better idea tomorrow, I won't hesitate uh to leverage it. All right. So you can please, if you have not subscribed to the YouTube channel, please subscribe. It's Oluyemi Adeosun. If you have friends, colleagues, junior ones in your department, HR, you can share the link with them so that they can also upskill and learn. And if you also like to teach, facilitate any session like this for us. We have wisdom all around us. Don't be shy, eh? 1 hour is just give back to us. We'll be happy to schedule a session with you so that we can learn. Ladies and gentlemen, I see my sister. Let me just celebrate a few people. Happy holidays. Alaja, doctor. Which one comes first, Alaja? Is it Alaja or Dr. Alaja? What's the spirit lit? Alaja, Dr. Kudirat. Thank you so much.
And the spirit leads, sir. They are all end. So I'm cool with any one of them. Thank you, sir. Well done.
Thank you, my sister. Don't take your presence for granted. I'm just doing
Thank you,
a
sir.
random roll call. I'm not calling
Thank you.
anybody. And don't be offended if I don't call you. I see my sister too here. We call her JK, Madam Ajoke Omota. I don't know why I'm saying doctor. Madam, go and enroll for PhD or DB. Each time I see your name or your face, doctor comes to my mind. I'm not saying anything. No. I see my friend there, my sister Irene Obago. Let me see. Now I'm looking for men to hail. Let me see. I hope I see. Who is a man here? Raise your hand so that I can call your name. I don't want to call a woman a man's name. Where are my brothers in the house? At least there's no football match tonight now. You guys should be available. Okay, I see my brother Tochukwu. Tochukwu, man. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you for coming. All right. Once again, then I see my brother Samuel Oluwafemi. Oh, let me greet Madam Princess. Thank you most sincerely for joining. Again, our Muslim
pleasure, sir.
sisters, you are welcome, and brothers. We thank God for the conclusion of the fasting season. I pray that the blessings of the holy month of Ramadan will continue to multiply in our lives, in our families, in our businesses, in our communities, and in our nation and in the world.
Amen. Thank you, sir.
Going forward. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night, sir.
Thank you, Doc. Good night.
Thank you, sir.
Good night.
Thank you, sir. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night.